Joining us on the program to talk about his new role as president of Cristo Rey Jesuit College Prep in Houston is Father Randy Gibbens. Father Randy, thank you so much for coming in here. You just took over as the president of Cristo Rey in January of this year. Congratulations on your new role. At the same time, I'm also thinking, man, this is a big responsibility. You're the chaplain of the school, and now you got the big job.
That's right. Yeah, it's been 39 days as president. It's been a whirlwind. There's a lot of learning going on my part, but it's been a lot of fun. It's a school that I've been at for quite a while, a place that I love. I feel like it's a place that I understand some of the dynamics, which has made the transition from teacher and chaplain to president a little bit easier.
Yeah. Of course, you've been at Cristo Rey now again as the chaplain and helping as a teacher as well since 2019. For people who are unfamiliar with Cristo Rey, tell me a little bit about it. When was it founded?
So Cristo Rey, there's a couple of different dates or a couple of different people that would be important to know about. So the Cristo Rey movement or the Cristo Rey network started in Chicago by a Jesuit priest named John Foley. And he was basically looking for a way to make Catholic education more accessible to the people that he worked with and to the families that he worked with. So it was around, I think it was 1996 or so, that the first Cristo Rey model school opened in Chicago. And the idea was that the tuition costs would be offset by a corporate work study program where the kids went to work one day a week. And so the companies that the kids went to work at, they supported the kids in their tuition, with their tuition, and then the school didn't have to charge those families tuition. Okay. So then fast forward to 2008, the New Orleans province of the Society of Jesus was very interested in this model, was hoping to kind of jump in and figure out a way that they could also make Catholic education more accessible. They did a feasibility study across the southern United States to figure out what city might be the best place for them to do that. Right. And so they landed on Houston. They are our provincial missioned a young Jesuit priest by the name of Father TJ Martinez to get the school going, so the school got up and running in August of 2009.
I never had the chance to meet Father T.J. Martinez, but everybody talks about how wonderful he was as a priest and the one to help establish it here in Houston.
You know, he was a guy, I talk about him in terms of being in Jesuit formation with him. So our formation is about 11 years, and you spend a lot of time with the other guys in formation, whether they're ahead of you or behind you. And so Father Martinez was probably about 7 or 8 years ahead of me in Jesuit formation. And at our gatherings and our celebrations, at our annual ordinations, he was a guy that we all looked up to. He was a guy that was extremely positive, extremely grateful for his vocation, and a real role model. And so it wasn't surprising to me that he has such success founding the school.
Well, it makes sense that he helped to establish it here in Houston and the study that had gone on, because Houston continues to grow and there continues to be a demand for this kind of education, which is a strong college prep education.
Right.
But you're right, there are a lot of people here in Houston who would love to have a Catholic education like that, but can't afford it.
Right.
And so it makes sense to me that you guys would have established it here. It's been around now and continuing to grow. With several hundred kids now. I can't remember if it's up to like 500 for enrollment. But
we're about 503, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. So it's steadily seen that growth. You had mentioned there's also the corporate work study. So the kids who go there go to work site once a week. We have 2 Cristo Rey interns for us here at the Guadalupe Radio Network station in Houston. But the places that they go, the students go to work, vary in terms of whether they're profit, nonprofit. They go pretty much all over, right?
That's right. You know, here in Houston, obviously, the energy industry is really big, and we have a lot of supporters in different areas of the energy industry. So I would say maybe 30 to 40% of our students work at some place in the energy industry. We have a lot of kids working in healthcare, working at hospital systems throughout the city. We have students at architecture firms. We have a big group of students working at law firms. And then we also send our students to nonprofit organizations that need help and would love to have our students. So across the board, across the Houston economy, you'll find Cristo Rey Jesuit students working in places that are open to having our students with them.
Very good. Tell me about the growth, because again, a little bit over 500 now. Is there a certain goal that you guys want to reach as you continue to expand?
So, we're really happy with the number we're at. There are 40 Cristo Rey schools in the United States right now, and we're the third largest. So the largest, I think, is Milwaukee with maybe 520 students, and we're at 503 or so. So we're not too far behind. We anticipate creeping up to closer to 550 by next year, and the largest that we're allowed to get by the network is 600 students. So they kind of set that governor for us. For us, what really is the governor as far as how big we get is the jobs. Because we want to make sure that we can send all of our students to a corporate work study placement. And so we have to grow at the same rate that our corporate work study department at the school can recruit jobs and train students up for those jobs. We did have a little bit of a dip in our enrollment during kind of those COVID years because it was very hard for us to get into schools and to recruit. Because more and more with the closing of some of the inner city Catholic schools, we find ourselves trying to find our Catholic students in charter schools and in public schools, and we're trying to get them back into Catholic education. So we were down to about 410, 415, but now we're back up to 500 or so. And so we're really happy. We've experienced pretty rapid growth these past 3 years, and we just want to make sure that we can continue to provide jobs for our students.
Very good. So I know in that sense you're always looking for more corporate partners.
Always looking for more corporate partners, yes.
Yeah, people that are willing to take in these students that can work during the day of a certain week. And luckily they do all sorts of tasks, right?
Right, yeah. Our kids are incredible. I'd say they're incredibly talented. They're incredibly eager, hardworking, and they're willing to learn. One of the values that we like to talk about at school is openness to growth. And so our kids, when they're applying to high schools and they hear that we're a corporate work study program, it attracts a certain kind of go-getter. A kid who's not afraid to put themselves into a social situation. Maybe it might be awkward at first, but they're really willing to show up, to adapt, to learn, and to grow.
If you're just now joining us, you're listening to AM 1430. We're talking with Father Randy Gibbens. He's the new president of Cristo Rey Jesuit College Prep. Father Randy, you had mentioned Paul Beck, who we've had on the show here before, and talked to him about Cristo Rey, the former president. It feels like you're in an advantageous position being the president now because you've been able to work with him closely when you were there. I would think one of the challenges of being the president of some schools around the country of Jesuits is that sometimes you get moved to a new position and then you're having to figure out the school. You're in an advantageous position where you've been at the school already, so you've seen how it works, and therefore you can step up. It's more responsibility, but you're in a little bit better position where you kind of know what you need to do. Yeah,
it's funny. Paul and I started together. He was hired as president in August of 2019, and I came on. Paul was coming from the business world, and he was very comfortable walking into boardrooms and into office buildings and recruiting jobs and kind of talking the talk. I'm more of I kind of a more of a education background. I have experience as a teacher, and I'm very familiar with the classroom. I'm very familiar with the students and families, and kind of like academic jargon and the life of the school. And so Paul and I think we complemented each other very well. In that he's got the business background, I have the education background. So when Paul came into the role, he had to start. His real learning curve revolved around education and state requirements for schools and things like that. I feel like where I have that under control, the learning curve for me is to become more familiar with the business world.
Right.
And I had the great fortune of the past semester really. Pretty much all semester, Paul and I shared the same schedule. And so we'd be on the same phone calls, we'd go to the same meetings, fundraising events, all sorts of things. So I really had a chance to pick his brain, to understand, how he promoted the school, what he thought the future of the school held. And so I feel like I had a really nice on-ramp in getting into this job, and I feel like there's been a good amount of continuity for the school, not a real sort of dramatic change in leadership styles or visions. I think we were very united in our vision for the school.
And the other faculty members, the students are used to seeing you, so
right.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Tell me a little bit about the Catholic and the spiritual side of going to school at Cristo Rey. It seems as though, any kind of college prep environment is tough in terms of academics. You want it to be that way, certainly, so it does prepare them appropriately for college. And, of course, then they have the corporate work study, so they're working once a week in the corporate job, trying to do that, extracurricular activities, time for Mass and prayer. It seems kind of overwhelming, Father Randy. How do you begin to kind of manage all that?
Well, one thing is to keep the goal in mind. And Paul said it best. Paul used to talk about, we want to get our kids into college, but we really want to get them into heaven too.
Right.
And so we spend a lot of energy in forming our students spiritually. Obviously they take theology classes every year, which is a great thing, and a lot of our, I'd say about 30% of our students come out of Catholic grammar schools, and when they get into a theology class, that feels natural to them. But 2/3 of our school are sitting in a theology class for the first time, studying the Bible for the first time, studying the theology of the sacraments for the first time. So in the classroom, there's great energy, there's great dialogue going on. We support our kids. Each year they'll participate in a retreat. We have a retreat for our freshmen when they first show up during what we call our Building the Pride week. So they'll spend a day kind of reflecting and growing spiritually and getting to know each other. Sophomore year's another retreat. They're kind of like sort of day retreats. But when they get to their junior year, that's when they start going on overnight retreats. So their junior year, the boys go on an overnight, or I guess it's 2 nights. They go on a retreat. The girls go on a retreat themselves. But then the capstone, kind of like the crown jewel of I would say the Cristo Rey student experience, is their Kairos retreat. So all 4 years they're getting familiar with each other. They're getting familiar with how to pray. They're getting familiar with theology, and then in the middle of their senior year, they attend a Kairos retreat, and that's a really powerful way of evangelization because their freshman to junior years, it's typically the adults, evangelizing the students. But then their senior year, it's the students evangelizing their classmates. So we identify student leaders. They work for months on giving their talks, on preparing the retreat. And it's a really powerful thing for a young man or a young woman to get up in front of their classmates and give their testimony, to share maybe what were their struggles or what were some of their doubts, what some of their joys and pains. That really speaks to their classmates, and that really makes their classmates, buy in and really decide, like, yes, I want God to be a part of my life, just like God is in my classmates' life.
I love that, because the idea of getting up and being able to make a speech or give your testimony in front of another person can be a little jarring at first. Some of these students may be nervous at first, but being able to get over that obstacle, to get over that hurdle, and being able to talk to people about it and give your story, I know has such a profound impact. I know that because I myself have gone to Straight Jesuit and been on a Kairos retreat, and remember how powerful it was for years to come afterwards, and sort of, again, having that mindset of being open to growth for what God has in store in your life. Tell me about, Father Randy, about how the impact you think it is that a school like Cristo Rey has on the families, because obviously the students themselves are ingrained into the culture. They're praying, they're going to the theology class, but you also kind of build that culture with the parents, because the parents, they may not have the money necessarily to send the kids to school, but I know they're grateful to be able to do so. They often get involved, and then you just end up talking with the parents, figuring out what all is going on with their situation, and then lo and behold, you've got a whole wider community. No,
that's exactly right. Our parents, I think, are often very, very moved by their students' experiences of the faith at Cristo Rey Jesuit, and I think it can ignite, or it can kind of rekindle the fire of their own faith lives. I think there's about 80% of our families identify as Catholic, and so many of our families, and I think this is probably pretty true of just Catholic families across Houston, not every family would say they have like a parish that they're going to every weekend and participating actively in. And a lot of that has to do with how much people are working, whatever responsibilities they have. And so when they get their kids back into Catholic education, I think a lot of times families and parents say, Oh, yeah. This is something that's been missing in my life, and I've had many conversations with parents about helping them get caught up on their sacraments, helping their kids get replugged into some sort of sacramental formation. Luckily, we have a wonderful Catholic parish next door, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And if we do find ourselves working with families looking to get back into parish life, we've got a great opportunity to plug them in to work with Father Kobos and his amazing team. So we do see what you're talking about. We see Catholic families just really impressed and really excited to see the growth that their kids have at Cristo Rey Jesuit, and it sparks in them a desire to live their Catholic faith anew.
And by the way, shout out to Father Kobos
Yes.
and everybody at Our Lady of Mount Carmel. What's great about that community is they offer masses in both English and Spanish. They have both English-speaking and Spanish-speaking communities, and I think that's great that they have that there right next to Cristo Rey. So whether or not the family member speaks Spanish or English, it's a church that they can go to, and it's pretty easy, a very welcoming community. So I think that's truly a blessing as well. Tell me again, Father Randy, let's recap. So when a student graduates from Cristo Rey, tell me about the values that you want them to have going in, hopefully to college if they're able to get a scholarship, but going out into the world. What do you want them to be able to kind of walk away with when they graduate from Cristo Rey?
So I'll kind of fall back on some of my Jesuit buzzwords. I would say I would hope that they felt empowered to find God in all things. I'd say that they recognize that, yes, they find God in their theology classes and at Mass, but they also can find God in science classes and in history, in the arts, in music, in film. I'd hope that we've given them a lens to recognize God's consolation in the created world, and so there's nothing for them to be afraid of. I don't want our students going off to college and maybe being challenged by this notion that science is opposed to faith or something like that. And so I want our kids to go away feeling, no, God is in all things, and that wherever I find beauty and truth and goodness, I recognize the fingerprints of God at work, and so I think it opens a certain sort of spirituality for them they're never too far from God. I'd also say that I want them to have a deep sense of connection to the human community, that recognizing that they've been given so much by their families, that their teachers have poured so much work and life into them, that they're filled with a sense of gratitude for the things that others have done for them, that they desire to kind of share that with others, and so we love for our students to leave Cristo Rey with a mind and a heart for others, especially those on the margins, and identify themselves as men and women for others. That's a big, that's kind of an important thing. And I imagine you have a little bit of that from your time at Strake.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about all those values you talked about: open to growth, loving, all those things. So it's great to be able to have that experience, like I said, for people here in the Houston community who otherwise can't afford it. And like you said, it has profound effects on everybody that they come across in their lives, their family members. Like I said, I'm so happy that maybe their family members are coming back to church or just taking an interest in Catholicism and the sacraments, because that can have a profound effect. So we're going to continue to pray for all of the students, the faculty, staff, everybody within the Cristo Rey community. Before I go, Father Randy, give me the website for people who want to learn more about the school.
Sure. www.CristoReyJesuit.org.
And are we in a time now where people can learn more? I know some schools have been doing applications, open houses, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we had our open house in December, but we just had a school tour this morning with a little local school that came by. We're always seeking great applicants for the freshman class, but also transfers into the upper level grades. And so click on the link, let us know your contact information, and we'd love to get you on campus for a personal tour and show off our amazing school.
Very good. Well, one more shout out to our Cristo Rey interns here at AM 1430, Sebastian, who's a senior, and Allison, who is a freshman as well. It's been great to have both of them here so far. So Father Randy Gibbens, now president of Cristo Rey Jesuit College Prep in Houston, thank you so much for being on here and telling us a little bit about the school and about its spirituality.
All right, well, thank you so much, and thanks for having me.